Hey everybody, welcome to this tutorial. First things first, you got to start with the cake layers. These are 6-inch round cake layers, and I'm just filling them with some flavored buttercream. And then at the end, I'm just going to ice my cake, and this is just the crumb coat, but I am trying to get it as nice as possible before putting it in the fridge. And I'm using the smooth side of this cake comb. You can get yours at esthercakes.com. Now we're going to make the ears out of some black fondant. These are teardrop nylon cutters, 3 inches in size. I'm placing them on a pedal pad, and I'm just smoothing the edges with my fingers so that it's easier when I do use this Dresden tool. I'm using the back part of the sharp end of the Dresden tool. As you can see here, I'm just making some strokes along the edge, and this will just mimic the hair on the fox's ear. And this is what it should look like so far. Repeat those steps for the other ear. All right, now we're going to make the inside of that ear. So now I'm using the 2-inch size nylon teardrop cutter, and I'm doing the same exact thing as I did for the outside of the ear. And the color that I'm using is the same sort of color of buttercream I used on the outside of the cake. Just glue the inner and the outer ear together with some edible glue. I'm using my edible glue, of course. It's available on my website, lhcakery.com. I decided to cut the bottom of these flat so that they sit flat on the top of the cake. And then I'm just curving them slightly and letting them dry upright. I'm using these molds for the flowers because there's a lot of different flowers and a lot of different shapes. I'm also using a plunger flower cutter. For the little leaves, I'm using a plunger cutter. It's so easy for the fondant to come out of the cutter because you use the little plunger and it pops right out. It also puts some of the design of the leaf on there as well. So now it's time to do the final coat of buttercream. So the color that I chose is on the orange side. It has a little bit of ivory in it, a little bit of brown, and I'm smoothing it out with this smooth cake comb. This is also by Esther Cakes. Her website is esthercakes.com. When you're done with the final coat of buttercream, put the cake in the fridge so that it can set up while we're making all the other decor. So for the white part of the face of the fox, I'm going to be using some white Fantasia fondant. I'm just going to give this a little bit of a knead, and then I'm going to roll it out. So now that I've rolled out my fondant, I'm ready to cut out this shape here. I just took a white sheet of paper, folded it in half, and cut a curve here. And this is just like a guideline for me. I am going to cut it a little bit bigger on the sides, but I just needed the general sizing. I'm using a Fat Daddy-O's multi-purpose cutter here, and this just cuts a nice straight cut along the bottom. And I am going to use a pen blade to cut along the shape. I know we're not supposed to use pen blades or anything sharp on our Fat Daddy-O's mat. However, I'm not pressing very hard because I do not want to go through that mat. I've used this mat for years now, and I know that if I do not press very hard that I won't cut through it. It's very durable. You can find this mat, the pen blade, multi-purpose cutter, etc. Most products that I use you can find on my Amazon shop. I will link it in the description. You can take that template off there. We don't need that anymore. Just take your fingers and run them along the edges here just to smooth it out. You just don't want a very blunt edge right there. It's gonna look a lot better when you place it on the cake if you do smooth the edges out. I'm going to be using the Dresden tool again, the back side of that sharp part. So it's pretty much the same movement that you did with the ears. We're just doing a little bit at the top here and a little bit on the sides. All right, now that your cake is nice and cold, spritz your cake with a little bit of water. This will allow the fondant to adhere to your cold buttercream cake. Now lift up the white piece of fondant that you just cut out and lay it on your cake. Now mine was a little bit too big, and that's fine. I'm just gonna cut off the excess on the bottom. I'm going to use a new razor blade to cut off the excess fondant. Just go along the very bottom of the cake. You can use a paper towel to wipe off any excess water from when you spritzed your cake. I have two piping bags here. The first one is the same exact color of the buttercream on the outside of the cake, and then the other one is white. I'm going to add a little bit of buttercream to the top of the cake for the ears to stand up.
What we do here is go back.
For this step, you can use a Wilton 1M or 2D piping tip to make some rosettes on the cake. I'm just alternating between the orange color and the white color, some rosettes, and just some little star tip piping. I'm adding a little bit of buttercream piping to the board so that I can add my flowers and the little leaves, and so that it matches the top of the cake. Now you can add your flowers and your leaves. So I've made a color of fondant that's close to the buttercream color on the cake. I also have some black and some white, and I've just rolled them together into a tail shape. I'm going to use the back of the Dresden tool just to make some marks in the tail. Now that the tail is done, I'm going to glue it to my cake now. And I'm just going to position it on the left side of the cake since I have the flowers on the right. And I'm going to be gluing the tail onto the cake and the cake board with my edible glue. I'm curving the end of the tail up because I think it looks super cute and it just gives it some character. Now you want to get some black fondant for the nose. I just made it into an oval shape. And this will be good for the nose. And then take some more of that black fondant and roll it into a long sausage. And then just taper the end to make it really thin. And you want to make 2 of these. And we're just going to curve it like this for the eyes. So on one side you'll have one this way, and on the other side you'll have one this way. And you can make some little eyelashes too. The nose and the eyes are glued on with my edible glue and they stay in place, just like that. So I want to add a little bit of blush to the face. I'm going to be using this Cake Shimmer from Poppy Paint. It's edible luster dust. It's really pretty. I'm gonna put a little bit of that on the cheeks. And it's all done. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Cute little fox cake.